former state senator, former state House member, and former United States Congressman John Peterson from the great northwest of Pennsylvania, or north central. I don't know how to put that. But how many counties did you represent, John?
We had 17 as we finished up in Congress. I usually had 10 when I was in the Senate, so it was always a big chunk of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, always. And the only man that knows it every inch. He's driven on every single road, be it gravel or paved. And Congressman Peterson retired voluntarily, retired a year ago, or 2 years ago, I guess it is now.
Just a year.
Just a year, okay.
A year and a few days.
And, of course, doesn't miss it at all, as you can tell, from serving in the United States Congress. And I've known John, and when I have guests on that I know, I like to say, under full disclosure, I've known John Peterson since he was a freshman in the State House, and that goes back 32 years ago.
Right.
So we've been through a lot in that time, and John has been very heavily involved in many projects, but particularly, and to our listeners who've heard John as a guest before, he has been particularly spearheading and helping to throw spears at the idea of tolling Interstate 80. The great interstate north of us from Ohio to New Jersey. And there has been a controversy, and it's been going on, 4 or 5 years, I guess, from the Rendell administration for their efforts to try and toll I-80 to add revenues to the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. And to put it as short as I can, and then I'll let John pick it up from there, it is now sitting in front of Secretary LaHood, who I would believe was one of your old friends from Congress.
Well, yes, we were. We were good friends. He left voluntarily the same time I did. And
yes, that's right.
He was from Illinois. I guess had a good relationship with President Obama, and I was kind of stunned when he got that position, but he was a good guy. I don't know what his background was in transportation, but we're hoping he is wise and makes a good decision. I don't think there's only one decision he can make following the law, but that's my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I do remember vividly when Margaret Peters was secretary. She was from Arizona when she was the last session, and she wanted to do this right after the state passed Act 44. She flew to Harrisburg and met with Rendell and the leaders, and was because she was wanting on her watch for there to be a pilot tolling project. She was for tolling, and in the end, she and her staff and many legal people in the department told me that if there had been a legal way to do it, that she would have done it. And I know the day she made her decision, Rendell got the first call, and about a half an hour later she called me and gave me the good news that it wasn't going to happen, but she had called Governor Rendell before that and explained to him that there was just no legal way she could do it. Now, I don't know what's changed. Act 44 hasn't changed. The category they're trying to go for states that this is a last resort effort to be able to bring the road up to quality maintenance. And we know right now, Bill, from back when we were there, 80 was always a challenge because there was some construction problems in the building of it.
Yes, that's right.
Had to rebuild the whole thing,
right?
Because there was a lot of flaws in the original construction. And so, but that just was just completed. We completed rebuilding that whole, and that road's in the best shape in my memory, in a lot better shape than the Turnpike, who wants to take it over and run it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't know how, but if they do, if it's a political decision and they decide to allow the tolling, then we'll have to go to the courts and try to win in the courts. And I think there are groups ready to do that. I know I would certainly enjoy the suit because I think it's probably one of the most, and it hasn't been debated enough. It's one of the most devastating economic nails in our coffin. We have enough issues to deal with here in this state. We have high business taxes, second highest corporate tax. We have the capital stock and franchise tax that just seems to never get phased out, though everybody says it needs to be phased out because most states don't have that. It's a deterrent to smaller businesses, and it's a tax they pay whether they make a profit or not, and it's pretty sizable. And so when you don't make a profit, it's even more difficult to pay that tax. And we don't have a loss carry forward provision where if a new business starts up and loses money, then they don't get to recoup those losses in future years, and we're the only state that does that. So you start adding these things up, and then you put the most expensive east-west transportation system in the country, maybe in the world, here where you have the Turnpike and the 80 tolled at these outrageous. I just read an article the other day that it's 3.5 times the rate of the Ohio Turnpike.
Yeah, I saw that same thing.
Yeah, and it's even more than the New York Thruway, which is always was considered the most costly. It's more expensive than that, and that was more expensive than that before the 25% raise last year and the 3% raise this year. And under law, at a minimum, it's going to go up 3% a year. And I think if they can prove inflation, they can go up more than that.
I believe that's correct, John.
Yeah, so they really set the stage. And when you put those kind of costs, I mean, the trucking industry is going to flee Pennsylvania. It's not just kneeling the people that are coming through here. There's other ways to get to the East Coast. You know, there's right up, just a few miles into New York State, you have an interstate. Just south into Virginia, you have an interstate. They'll work their way around here, and we'll just lose the business. And our companies that are located here, I had companies in my district that were going to pay $2.5 million more the first year just on outgoing freight.
$2.5 million.
$2.5 million. There's a company in Clinton County. They built 5 new plants in the last decade. They more than replaced the old hammer mill, paper mill that went broke there,
right.
in Lock Haven. They built 5 plants in that region, and all modern paper companies. And their first-year cost was going to be $2.5 million on outgoing freight alone.
If they were to toll I-80, is I-79 next?
Well, there's some claim who think tolling is the answer, and I guess if it is the answer, you shouldn't just pick one corridor. And of course, but what's even worse?
I'm not advocating it. I'm saying what a frightening thought that might be.
Oh,
if we can do it at east-west, why can't we do it north-south?
That's right. But we think they ought to have the pilot project on I-95.
Which is right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and most of I-95 is tolled in that region, except Pennsylvania. And they tell me that if you charged a car $1 a day, you get over $1 million a day.
Yeah. Yes, I can believe that.
It's pretty lucrative. So, but no, they came up here. Now, I want to say one thing, that people say this is a urban versus rural, and it kind of has been, but it shouldn't be, because when you thwart the economic engine of Pennsylvania, and this will hurt manufacturing, it'll hurt distribution. Well, no company like Walmart or Target or any of these Staples, any of these box stores will, and we're about 5 hours north and south. We cover the whole East Coast on a truck, and we're in the right position to be the box store shipping place.
And we do have several of those on I-80.
We have one in Clearfield. I think it's 1,400 high-paying, good-paying jobs.
Right.
But what didn't get talked about when this hit the fan a few years ago, Target had money in the ground. They had cement in the ground in Union County, near Lewistown, and they were building a new store, and it just went on hold. And nobody talks about that. I was also told
I didn't know about that. So
because
of the potential of I-80 being there, they ceased building.
They ceased after they'd bought the land.
And
hundreds of acres, and it was an industrial development site, and
did design, architecture, did everything. I mean, they were well into the process of their pouring cement, John.
The grading was done and money was in the ground, and they stopped. And so that tells you that. I was also told that it was either Staples or the other one was looking in Lehigh County. It hadn't progressed quite that far, but the minute when this hit, they just walked away. I mean, they were Pennsylvania was on the list.
So we can calculate what we know it's going to cost based on businesses in existence. And you're citing examples of what could be or what's been lost that we don't even know, that we can't quantify.
That's right. Well, if you were going to expand a division that has a big freight load, right now, with this hanging over our head, you wouldn't expand the Pennsylvania.
No, you wouldn't. No, of course not. You'd find someplace else. John, we have to take a break here in a quick second. But before we do, when you talked about a legal challenge, where would that be? At the state level?
No, that'd be at the federal level. We would challenge the Secretary's right to approve it, because we don't think that Pennsylvania meets the criteria the first time, the second time, or the third time, because nothing's changed. I mean, the circumstances are that road's in fine shape. And the category that they're asking for says this is the only way Pennsylvania can maintain or can bring that road back up to
Hold
speed.
on, we'll be